And that comes back to the story of that digital divide. If we look to Singapore as another example, this is not transportation necessarily, but it's automation as far as robots. They're already using this robot dog called Spot that's being used in parks in Singapore that will help to identify if people aren't physically distancing, and Spot will announce that they need to keep further apart because it's able to use something called computer vision to see how close people are together. What's really interesting about Spot the robot dog is that Boston Dynamics just this month made this robot dog available for anyone to buy. It's about $80,000 US if you want to check one out. And what we're seeing as well with these robot dogs is that they're being used in all different types of industries. They're being used to save man hours in terms of the construction industry. They're being used in places in construction where potentially there are risks as far as the terrain. They're being used in healthcare as well to identify if someone may have a fever, as another example. Now, when I talk about this acceleration and adoption happening in other parts of the world, I do want to say that there are a few pockets and places where we're seeing different organizations here in Canada who are trying out this new technology. As one example, Quebec-based construction firm Pomerleau has actually been using Spot in their 500,000 square foot building. And what Spot does there is it saves about 20 hours of work per week by automating the capture of nearly 5,000 images. So again, we're seeing this change in the workplace where more and more we'll see this introduction of robots in the workplace, and that's absolutely a real reality. And I'm sure it's taken companies like Pomerleau the ability to actually have the courage to lead in this space and understand how to try some of this new technology just to be one step ahead and always thinking about the future. So as far as the lesson here, the lesson is for all of us really to try to find that courage to lead and to try new things. And as far as a resource, I wanted to recommend this link you can check out. It's an AI leadership toolkit. So if you're watching right now and you're a leader in your organization, this is an excellent toolkit to walk through no matter what industry you're in, to really understand how you can lead as far as emerging technologies and understand the opportunities that are right in front of you. Stephen, we have a couple more trends, but wanted to check in with you for a second as far as any questions or comments on the future of machines and robots in the workplace.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. It's funny that you showed Spot because I actually was watching breakfast television here in Toronto this morning, and there was a clip on there on Spot. And, you know, that I think when you look at these technologies, a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago had sent me a technology of an actual, like a robot that looked like a human. And people were actually pushing these robots over. They were tumbling like a human tumbles. They had kind of the, you know, the body mechanics worked so incredibly. You know, this, and a lot of the commentary from some of the TV personalities and so on was about how scary this is, how humanistic and how animalistic these technologies are. So what would you say to people? Because I think there is a fear factor out there about technology, about what the implications are. You know, you talked about food delivery, where the human element is taken out. What are the implications for this? Should we be fearful of it? How do you encourage people to more embrace it as opposed to be fearful of it?
I think you make a really great point. To be honest with you, being in the position that I'm in and talking about much of this technology, I know that it can also infuriate people because you're talking about the end of some jobs. I mean, in many cases, if you look at the example I just showed you in Quebec, we're talking about a robot essentially replacing what a human used to do. In saying that as well, I would also stress that when we talk about robots, we can think about robots in some really interesting scenarios as far as healthcare. Right now in Belgium during COVID-19, they actually have in one of their hospitals a robot greeter. As you walk into the hospital, what the robot is able to do is to take your temperature, ask you questions, and then put you in a queue to move on to the next phase. Now, they do this because they recognize the process of an actual human interacting with someone who could be positive for COVID-19 is very dangerous. So in that sense, it becomes life-saving technology.